If you're watching this video right now, I want you to know something important. The mistakes you keep making in English don't mean you're not smart enough or capable enough to speak fluently. They just mean nobody ever sat you down and explained why they happen. Today, that changes. Most English learners never realize this. The biggest mistake isn't your grammar. It's not your vocabulary either. The biggest mistake is repeating the same small errors over and over, without even noticing them, until they quietly become habits. And habits are hard to break unless someone points them out to you with love, patience, and a clear plan. That's exactly what we're doing together today. This lesson can change the way you speak English, not by giving you 100 new rules to memorize, but by fixing the 5 mistakes that make even hardworking learners sound less confident than they actually are. You've been putting in the effort. You've been showing up, practicing, shadowing, repeating sentences out loud, even when nobody was watching. That effort matters, and today we're going to make sure it finally shows in the way you speak. By the end of this video, you're going to hear yourself differently. You're going to catch mistakes before they even leave your mouth. You're going to feel that quiet, powerful confidence that comes from knowing exactly what to fix and how to fix it. I'm not going to tell you everything right now because I want you to experience each of these 5 moments as a real aha breakthrough, one by one, just like we do every day in this 21 Today shadowing challenge. You've come this far. Day 6 is here, and this one might just be the lesson that changes everything. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let's start with the very first mistake, the one almost every learner makes without even realizing it. Let's talk about something nobody tells you when you start learning English. It's not about verb tenses. It's not about which preposition goes where. It's something quieter, something that happens in half a second. And yet it changes everything about how confident you sound. It's the pause. That tiny hesitation before you speak. That moment where your brain is scrambling, searching for the right word, checking the grammar rule in your head one more time before you dare to open your mouth. You've done this before, haven't you? You know exactly what you want to say. You understand the topic. You could probably write it down perfectly, but the moment you need to say it out loud, something freezes. Here's the truth. That freeze isn't a sign that your English is bad. It's a sign that you've been trained, without even realizing it, to treat speaking like a test you have to pass, instead of a conversation you get to have. Think about how most of us learned English. Sit in a classroom, memorize a rule, get corrected the moment we make a mistake, answer only when we're sure we're right. That environment teaches your brain one dangerous lesson: silence is safer than a mistake. So your brain builds this small, invisible habit. Pause, check, then speak. And that pause? That's the mistake nobody ever points out to you. Not your grammar, not your accent, your hesitation. And here's the part that will shift everything for you today. Native speakers make mistakes constantly. They repeat words, they say, they correct themselves mid-sentence, and nobody thinks less of them. Confidence in speaking was never about perfect grammar. It was always about flow. About sounding like a real person, having a real thought, not a student reciting an answer. So how do you break this habit? You don't fight it with more grammar rules, you break it with rhythm. This is exactly why shadowing, what we've been doing together since day 1 of this challenge, works so powerfully. When you shadow a native speaker, you're not given time to pause and check yourself. You're forced to keep up, to let the words flow at natural speed, to trust your mouth before your brain has time to overthink it. Every single day you shadow, you are quietly, gently retraining your brain to stop treating speaking like a test. Here's a simple practice you can start today. Take one sentence, just one, from anything you're reading or watching. Say it out loud 3 times in a row without stopping, without correcting yourself, even if you feel it wasn't perfect. Let it flow. Then say it 3 more times, a little faster each time. You'll notice something interesting. By the 3rd or 4th repetition, the hesitation disappears. Your mouth remembers the rhythm even before your brain finishes analyzing the grammar. That's the beginning of real fluency. Not knowing every rule, but trusting your own voice enough to let it move. I want you to remember this moment. Right now, watching this video, you are allowed to make mistakes out loud. In fact, the sooner you make peace with that, the sooner your English starts sounding natural. Every fluent speaker you admire, every confident voice you've ever wished you could sound like, went through this exact same phase. They didn't wait until they were perfect to speak. They spoke first, and the confidence caught up later. So today, notice your pauses. Notice the moments you hold back a sentence because you're not sure it's correct. And instead of freezing, just say it. Let it come out imperfect if it has to. Because a slightly imperfect sentence spoken with confidence will always sound more fluent than a perfect sentence trapped inside your head. This is your first step today. And it's a big one. Because once you stop fearing the pause, everything else in this lesson becomes so much easier to build on. Now, let's move to the next mistake. One that's hiding in almost every sentence you translate before you speak it. Here's something I want you to sit with for a moment. You already know more English than you think you do. The problem isn't your vocabulary. The problem is what your brain does in the split second before you speak. It runs to your first language first, translates the thought, checks it, rearranges it, and only then hands it to your mouth in English. And by the time all of that happens, the moment has passed. The conversation has moved on. The confidence has slipped away. This is the second silent mistake almost every English learner makes, thinking in one language and speaking in another. You've felt this, haven't you? Someone asks you a question, and instead of an answer flowing out naturally, there's this internal traffic jam. Your native language shows up first with the real thought. Then you scramble to convert it. Then you worry about word order, because your language and English don't always agree on where things go. Then finally, after all that traffic, a sentence comes out. Slower than you wanted. Less natural than you wanted. And you walk away thinking, why can't I just speak normally? I want you to hear this clearly. It's not because you're not fluent enough. It's because you're doing double the work every single time you speak. You're not just speaking English, you're translating into it, live, under pressure. No wonder it feels exhausting. So here's the shift that changes everything. Fluency isn't built by translating faster. It's built by thinking in English directly, even in small, simple pieces at first. This sounds hard, but it's actually one of the most learnable skills in this entire journey. And it's exactly why shadowing has been at the center of our 21 days together. When you shadow a native speaker, you're not translating anything. You're absorbing entire phrases as complete units, not word by word, but chunk by chunk, exactly how a native speaker's brain stores language. Phrases like, I couldn't agree more, or that makes total sense, or I was just about to say that. These aren't built one word at a time in a native speaker's mind. They live in the brain as one single unit, ready to fire instantly. That's what you're training every time you shadow. You're not learning translations, you're building instinct. Here's a practice you can start using from today. Instead of translating full sentences from your own language, start narrating your day in small English phrases, directly in English, without going through your first language at all. Look at your coffee cup and just think, this coffee is getting cold. Look outside and think, it looks like it might rain. Keep it small, keep it simple. The goal isn't complex grammar. The goal is skipping the translation step completely, even in these tiny moments. Do this consistently, and something beautiful starts happening in your brain. English stops being a code you have to decode and starts becoming a second home for your thoughts. You stop asking, how do I say this in English, and start simply having the thought in English to begin with. I know this might feel unfamiliar right now, maybe even a little uncomfortable. That's completely normal. Every single skill that eventually becomes second nature feels strange the first few times you try it. But this is exactly the kind of discomfort that means you're growing, not the kind that means something's wrong. So today, notice the moments you translate. Notice when your first language shows up before English does. And gently, patiently start replacing that habit with direct English thoughts, one small phrase at a time. You don't need to translate less than perfect grammar. You need to think in English more often, even imperfectly, because that's the real bridge to fluency. This mistake, once you start correcting it, doesn't just make you faster. It makes you feel like English truly belongs to you. Now, let's move to the next mistake, the one responsible for those stiff, robotic-sounding sentences you might have noticed in your own speaking. Let's talk about something you've probably felt but never quite had the words for. That moment when you say a sentence in English, and even though every word is technically correct, it just sounds stiff, mechanical, a little too perfect, almost like it was built in a factory instead of spoken by a real person. If you've ever recorded yourself speaking and thought, "Why do I sound so robotic?" This keynote is for you. Here's the truth. This isn't a grammar problem. Your sentences might be completely correct on paper. The real issue is that you're speaking in full, formal, textbook structures, the kind you'd write in an essay, instead of the natural, slightly loose, rhythmic way real people actually talk. Think about it this way. In school, we're taught to build complete sentences, subject, verb, object, all in perfect order, every time. And that's useful for writing. But real spoken English doesn't work like that. Native speakers constantly shorten things, drop words that are obvious from context, and lean on contractions and connector phrases that make speech flow like water instead of clicking along like a typewriter. When you skip all of that and speak only in full, formal sentences, your English is correct, but it doesn't sound alive. Here's a simple example. A textbook sentence might be, "I am going to go to the store because I need to buy some milk." Grammatically flawless. But a real, natural spoken version would sound more like, "I'm just gonna run to the store. Need to grab some milk." Same meaning. Completely different energy. One sounds like a rule book. The other sounds like a person. This is exactly why shadowing matters so deeply in what we've been building over these past 6 days. When you shadow native speakers, you're not just copying words. You're absorbing their rhythm, their contractions, their natural pauses, the way they let some words blend together and drop others entirely. This is the real texture of spoken English, and it's something no grammar book can fully teach you. Only your ear, trained through repetition, can pick it up. So here's what I want you to start doing today. As you shadow your practice sentences, don't just focus on saying the words correctly. Focus on copying the music of the sentence. Notice where the speaker speeds up, where they slow down, where two words blend into. One sound like want to becoming wanna, or going to becoming gonna. You don't have to force these into your speech artificially. Just let your ear absorb them naturally through repetition, and over time, they'll start showing up in your own speaking without you even trying. Another small but powerful practice. After you shadow a sentence, try saying it again, but slightly loosen it, the way you would if you were talking to a close friend instead of writing a formal email. Let it feel relaxed. Let it feel human. This single shift, from correct to natural, is often the difference between sounding like you're reciting English and sounding like you're actually living inside the language. I want you to remember something important here. Sounding natural doesn't mean sounding careless. It means sounding comfortable. It means your English finally matches the way real conversations actually flow. Warm, a little imperfect, full of small human rhythms instead of stiff, robotic precision. This is a skill, and like every skill in this challenge, it grows with repetition, not perfection. Every day you shadow, you're not just learning words. You're absorbing the natural heartbeat of the language. And slowly, without even noticing it happening, your own sentences start to carry that same rhythm. So today, listen not just to what native speakers say, but how they say it. The flow, the shortcuts, the ease. That's the real secret behind sounding less like a textbook and more like yourself. Now, let's move to the next mistake. A small, everyday habit that can instantly upgrade your pronunciation. I want to ask you something honest. When was the last time you actually listened to your own voice speaking English? Not just heard it in passing, but really listened. The way you'd listen to a stranger, paying attention to every sound, every stress, every rhythm? If your answer is rarely or never, you've just found one of the biggest hidden reasons your pronunciation hasn't improved as fast as you hoped. Here's the truth most learners never hear. Pronunciation doesn't improve through knowing the rules. It improves through feedback. Real, honest feedback between what you think you're saying and what's actually coming out of your mouth. And you can't get that feedback if you never record yourself and listen back. This is the fourth mistake, and it's one of the simplest to fix, yet almost nobody does it. Most learners practice speaking, feel like it went fine, and move on. But fine is a feeling, not a fact. Your brain is remarkably good at hearing what it expects to hear, not what you actually said. That's why a sound you think you're pronouncing perfectly might be landing completely differently to someone else's ear, and you'd have no idea because you never checked. So here's the one habit I want you to build starting today. Record yourself. Shadowing a sentence, then immediately play it back next to the original. Not tomorrow, not when you have time. Right after you say it. This single habit, recording and comparing, does something no textbook or rule can do. It turns your ear into your teacher. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. Almost everyone cringes a little the first time they hear their own recorded voice. That's completely normal, and it fades quickly. But underneath that initial discomfort is something incredibly valuable. Real, specific information. You'll start noticing things like, oh, I'm stressing the wrong syllable in that word, or I'm cutting that vowel sound too short, or the native speaker's voice rises there, and mine stays flat. These are small details, but they are exactly the details that separate an accent. That's hard to understand from a voice that sounds clear and confident. Here's how to do this practice properly. Step by step. First, choose one short sentence from your shadowing material. Just one, 6 to 10 words is perfect. Say it out loud once naturally and record it. Then immediately play the original native audio, followed by your own recording. Don't judge yourself yet. Just listen, the way a curious observer would. Ask yourself, where does my rhythm match theirs, and where does it feel different? Then try again, adjusting just one small thing, maybe the stress, maybe the length of a vowel, maybe the speed. Record again, compare again. Each round, the gap gets smaller. What makes this habit so powerful is that it turns pronunciation from something abstract, just practice more, into something concrete and measurable. You're no longer guessing whether you're improving. You're hearing it directly with your own ears in real time. And here's something beautiful about this process. It builds a kind of self-trust that no external correction ever could. When someone else points out your mistake, it can feel discouraging. But when you catch it yourself, through your own careful listening, it feels like discovery, like you're becoming your own coach. That shift from waiting to be corrected to actively noticing your own patterns is one of the most powerful turning points in becoming a confident, independent English speaker. So here's your challenge for today. After this video, pick just one sentence from your shadowing practice. Record it, compare it, adjust it. Do this 3 times. That's it. Small, repeatable, honest feedback, done consistently, will reshape your pronunciation faster than almost anything else you could do. You don't need a perfect accent. You need a habit of listening closely enough to keep getting a little closer every single day. Now let's move to our final mistake today. And it might be the most freeing one yet, because it's going to change how you feel about the mistakes you already make. Here's something I want you to really absorb, because it might be the most important idea in this entire lesson. The goal was never to stop making mistakes. The goal is to make mistakes without letting them stop you. This is the 5th mistake. And it's not really about English at all. It's about what happens inside you the moment you say something wrong. Do you freeze? Do you apologize 3 times? Do you replay that one mistake in your head for the rest of the conversation, barely listening to what comes next because you're still embarrassed about 5 seconds ago? If this sounds familiar, I want you to know this reaction isn't a personality flaw. It's a habit. And like every habit in this challenge, it can be gently, patiently rebuilt. Think about how a native speaker handles their own mistakes. They say the wrong word, and without even pausing, they correct it mid-sentence and keep going. I went to the store yesterday. Barely a ripple in the conversation. Nobody stops. Nobody judges. The conversation just flows on. That's not because native speakers don't make mistakes. It's because they've never been taught to treat a mistake as a crisis. It's just a normal, expected part of speaking, the same way a small stumble is a normal part of walking. But so many English learners were taught the opposite, that every mistake is a red mark, a point deducted, a sign that something is wrong with them. And that belief, more than any grammar rule, is what makes learners freeze mid-sentence, lose their train of thought, and walk away from conversations feeling defeated instead of proud of how far they've come. So here's the real fix, and it's less about technique and more about mindset. When you make a mistake while speaking, treat it exactly the way a native speaker would, as a tiny bump, not a wall. Correct it if you notice it, smile if you don't, and keep moving forward. Because the conversation you're having matters more than the one grammatically perfect sentence you didn't quite get right. Here's a practice that will help you build this instinct starting today. During your shadowing practice, when you stumble over a word or say something incorrectly, don't stop and restart from the beginning like you failed a test. Instead, do exactly what native speakers do. Pause for half a second, correct yourself naturally, and keep flowing forward, just like you'd fix a typo while still typing the sentence. Practicing this on purpose, in low-pressure moments, trains your brain to do it automatically when it really counts, in real conversations, with real people, where confidence matters most. I also want you to try something a little different after today's session. The next time you catch yourself making a mistake out loud, instead of feeling embarrassed, quietly say to yourself, "Good. That means I'm actually speaking, not just staying silent to avoid being wrong." Because that's the real truth hiding underneath this whole mistake. Every mistake you make out loud is proof that you showed up, that you tried, that you chose progress over perfection, even when it felt uncomfortable. And that choice, repeated daily, is exactly what fluency is built from. Look at how far you've already come. 6 days into this shadowing challenge, and you're not just learning English, you're rewiring the way you think about speaking itself. You're learning to trust your voice a little more than you did last week. You're learning that hesitation isn't required, that translating isn't necessary, that natural rhythm matters more than robotic perfection, that your own ears can become your best teacher, and now that your mistakes were never something to fear in the first place. That's not a small transformation. That's the real beginning of fluency. So tomorrow, when you sit down for day 7, I want you to carry one feeling with you: pride. Not because you've become perfect, but because you've become someone who keeps speaking anyway. And that, more than any grammar rule, is what makes a truly confident English speaker. See you in the next lesson.